Language is a gate of trust.
Yes, excellent.
And the Lord tells us to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. We always major on the innocent as doves, but like, what is being wise as a serpent, right? And a friend actually pointed that out to me, and it gave me permission to start learning how to speak to people outside the church to lead them back in.
Good afternoon and welcome to Cultural Catalyst, where we help you to learn how to live fully alive, co-labored with God, and change the world. And today I have a very exciting guest. She actually oversees our prophetic ministry. This is Lindsey Reiman.
Hi.
Did I get your last name? Did I pronounce it right?
Yes, you did. After several
attempts. Because we practiced,
yes.
You've been with me for years and I still get it wrong.
Exactly.
This is exciting. Thanks for being on this Cultural Catalyst. You have had such an impact in the early days in the Hollywood, that whole Hollywood realm, right? That was kind of your Metron, and you were kind of a new believer when you were in there, right?
Yes, correct.
I mean, you got saved while you were in there, right? If I remember your story.
Yep. I like to say I'm a late bloomer. I didn't encounter Jesus until December of 2014.
Wow.
Yeah.
But weren't you already in that whole world?
I was. I'd been working in LA for the past 10 years in TV, film, and even before that, I worked in the music industry, comic books, always in entertainment. Yeah.
And so then you met Jesus.
Yes.
With all of these crazy people.
Yes.
And now you actually we've kind of turned over the prophetic community to you, and you're the leader of our prophetic community under myself and Ben Armstrong. Yeah,
it's so exciting. I have lots of ideas on just getting the community at Bethel, like doing new prophetic initiatives and just having fun. Yeah.
This, we're in this mode right now, and you know this because you're on this team also, but we're in this mode right now of, the School of the Prophets is coming up in August. Mm-hmm. And so we have a small team, so we're all kind of in it together, right?
Yeah.
So we're thinking about prophetic beyond the podium, beyond the pulpit, right?
Yeah.
Because most of the powerful prophetic ministry in the Bible actually did not happen in the synagogue.
Right.
In fact, very little of it did.
Correct. Yeah.
And yet most of what we teach and the way we teach it and the protocols we give, all of it kind of limits it to the four walls. In fact, we used to call it parking lot prophecy. When you did something, it was in negative, like that's a parking lot prophecy. Like, you should leave that to the professional people.
Wow.
You didn't know that, did you?
No, I did not. That predates me. Yes.
Bethel, before I came, and before Bill came 2 years earlier, Bethel was not allowed to do parking lot prophecy.
Wow.
Nobody knows that. Like, it was looked down upon. Like, I got a prophecy. So, that's parking lot prophecy. That's not good.
That doesn't count. Like, if you weren't like a big prophet on a podium, it didn't count. Is that what I'm understanding? Okay.
Yeah. And it count, like, people had to know you, and now we're training and equipping all these people for everywhere,
all over the world.
And most of what we do would be called parking lot prophecy because it's not in the four walls of the church, right?
Yeah.
So these are exciting times. Can you share a little bit about how you knew that you were called to the office of prophet? Because that is we did some teaching online this week, actually.
Yeah.
Probably this is recorded after, so you may see this later, but we've actually done a lot of teaching on the difference between the gift of prophecy and the office of a prophet.
Right.
And yet you called to be a prophet, or we will say a prophetess.
Mm-hmm.
How did you know you're called to be a prophetess?
Yeah. So shortly after I got saved, it was in my second year. I moved up to Redding to do the Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry.
Come on, put a plug in for it. Change your life.
Changed my life.
If you're watching this, you should do it too.
100%.
100%.
But it was in my second year of BSSM. I started I was having a series of encounters, and they were quite mystical in nature, and I didn't know what they meant. Amazing that God was showing up in these profound ways, but I kind of was like, what is this dream? What is this open vision? Like, what are these encounters about? And one day I had this revelation where I saw a golden thread through all the encounters, and they pointed back to the book of Daniel. And so that kind of created the wonder of like, okay, well, who is Daniel? What did Daniel do? And then I was like, and I'd only been reading the Bible for like a year and a half at this point. So I was like, oh, Daniel's considered a prophet. And I was like, no, that can't be it. I should just probably I'm not called to be a prophet. I'm just supposed to like do what he does. Right. And then shortly after that, I had this encounter. So funny, just in my car. I was in my car in the driveway, parking lot prophecy from the Lord himself.
My prophetic call was in the parking lot.
Yeah. And he spoke to me, and I've never actually had him speak to me this way since then, but it was so loud. It was almost audible, and it was like went through my whole body. And he said, I've called you to be a prophet. And as soon as he said it, I erupted in tears, like just uncontrolled, like crying, right? Like, oh, like out of nowhere. That's how you know the Lord's speaking to you when you're like, why am I having this reaction?
Totally.
And I remember when that happened, I kind of like was like, okay, well, I'm not a prophet yet. He's called me and I'm in training. And for some reason, I thought it was supposed to be a secret. I don't know why. It all felt so new to me. And after that, my peers started calling me that, which had never happened before.
Wow.
And then after that, Ben and you ended up calling me out as that. And so then but I'll say this. It was an awkward walk. There was a minute where I'm like, is this really real? Like, God, like, totally. Can I take these steps forward? And it wasn't until I started like teaching and activating people in the prophetic and having them come back and tell me like, I've grown in the prophetic, I'm hearing God's voice more, that I started to be like, okay, like that was the moment that I was like, there is an office. Like I felt like I finally had a desk, right? I was like, okay, I'm in the office, we have a desk, right?
Yeah, because obviously a prophet is one of the fivefold ministry, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers. And one of the main things they do in the New Testament is to equip the saints to do the work of service.
Yes.
So prophets actually train prophetic people, right?
Yeah. So it really wasn't until, and I kind of just accidentally like Forrest Gumped my way into activating people. I wasn't even trying to like equip that. I didn't wake up being like, I need to equip the saints now. It just sort of naturally started happening. And then that's where I started to feel more comfortable with even walking out the role of a prophet. Yeah.
And in the midst of all that, you started an organization called Aqua Regia, right? Did I get it right? Regia? Yeah. Can you pronounce it better than that?
Aqua Regia.
Regia.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though I practiced like several times before we did this, I know it's that. And you also are a co-founder of the SQ Institute, the Spiritual Intelligence Institute. Tell us about the first one, Aqua. Tell us about that one a little bit.
So Aqua Regia is a spiritual intelligence company, which is every time I say it, people are like, what is that?
The name means what?
Okay, the name means royal water.
Royal water.
Yeah, it's Latin for royal water or king's water. The Lord gave it to me. I literally had to go look it up to see what it meant. And essentially what we do two things. We do prophetic reports for people, which I hear make amazing gifts for the person who has everything. That's what everyone always tells me. It's an excellent gift when you don't know what to give someone.
Yeah. You can send flowers or you can send a prophetic report.
Great plug. Thank you.
Exactly.
And then we also do consulting, which is something more new that we've wandered into, prophetic consulting for organizations and people looking for heavenly solutions when they've run out of earthly ones.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that we're raising up as solutionaries.
Exactly.
Prophetic solutionaries. So, and so much around solutionaries. Well, let me back up and say this. One of the things that we're learning is that prophets and prophetesses, and even, everybody really, they tend to have a metron, and that word metron, it doesn't have a direct translation. It's a Greek word.
Yeah.
But it basically means your sphere of influence. Like the Lord has actually given you authority in an area. It might be demographic or geographic.
Right.
Like the Apostle Paul to the Gentiles.
Yeah.
The Apostle Peter to the Jews.
Yeah.
So theirs was kind of an ethnic group.
Yeah.
And But how do you actually know your Metron?
Okay. So I have a couple things to say that I've discovered.
Okay, come on. Let's get some revelation going on here.
Well, the first time I understood my Metron was the open doors.
Okay.
So the grace and favor that just opened up to me. I wasn't looking for it. Like in Hollywood, like there were doors open for me to come in and replace the psychics at Hollywood parties, right? It wasn't my idea. It was somebody else's. They were like,
oh, you got to say that slower.
Okay. So basically,
you're in Hollywood.
So I'm actually in Reading at this point. I'm in my second year of BSSM.
But you've been in Hollywood.
Yeah, I worked in Hollywood for 10 years.
Before you knew the Lord.
Correct.
So you go into parties.
Yes.
And these psychics are some of the entertainment, right?
Yeah, I had no idea they were brought in as much as they are. But yeah. So a friend of mine who is a producer for really high profile celebrity events, she called me one day and she was like, hey, we're doing this big party for blah, blah, blah. And she was like, we were going to bring in psychics to do fortune telling and dream interpretation. And she was like, don't you kind of do the same thing? And I was like, I do not do the same thing. I was like, I listen to God and speak identity over them and call out the gold.
Totally.
And she was kind of like, yeah, whatever. And then she was like, why don't we have you come instead? Like, do you want to replace the psychics? To which I was like, yes, I do.
And see, at this point, a whole bunch of Christians are already freaking out.
I know. So
right? Freaking out.
Before
right?
you turn this off.
Oh my God, Bethel is now, they're being identified with the psychics.
Yeah.
What's next?
No, so what happened was I flipped it. So I brought in a team of prophets. I mean, if someone would have told me that my ministry would be like renting tuxes and ball gowns for prophets and smuggling them into parties, I wouldn't have believed them. But we did this for a while.
This is crazy, right?
And we would show up at these parties and it was like the prayer line, right? Like we were all in a line, except we weren't in church. We were at a party and people would come up to us and we would prophesy over them and we would speak to them about God and we would break things off and people cried and like it was amazing. And there was such a profound experience. The first time I did it, one of the producers was like, the most interesting thing in this party is happening in that corner over there. And they just said, bring her back. And they knew that I loved Jesus. And they were just like, I grew in favor, like with what I could say. They were like, okay, like just keep coming. And so I did that 7 times. This is all pre-COVID, right? When we were doing big events. Yeah. And so I remember one of the things I'll never forget is I was at this party. People are literally drinking and like vaping weed. Like it is crazy. And I felt a tangible sensation of oil being poured over my head as I was.
You weren't drinking or smoking.
No,
weed,
100%. I don't drink. Yeah.
For this audience, we need to like, when you weren't doing any of that.
You can tangibly experience God, right?
Exactly.
So this is what I'm explaining.
In darkness.
Yeah. But then and the Lord's like, I am with you. He anoints your head with oil, right? Your cup overflows. Like I am sitting at the table of the enemies, right? And yet I'm standing there and prophesying life. But I'm not in church. I'm in a party. And it's just kind of like, wow, okay, God, like prophecy is meant to go outside the church to reach the lost.
Wow.
To lead them back.
I remember Ben coming in and saying, hey, we got this new girl on our team. He's telling me the story and I'm like, okay. And he's
you
like,
didn't like it.
Well, no, you know me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm good with stretching the boundaries. I just like want to make sure that we don't actually have, a new age person in our midst doing something in the name of God,
Totally.
And I'm like, Ben, do you know this girl? And he's like, yeah, she's good.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. Because I've been in the political government world.
Yeah.
Where there's a whole bunch of unbelievers, same kind of scenario. And, and the Lord's like, hey, there's duct tape on that person's head. Peel the duct tape off, right? I'm like, duct tape? How's that going to go? And basically we were peeling the duct tape off and people were falling down to the power of God.
Right.
And literally what was actually happening is they were getting delivered. So I'd say this piece of duct tape would say tormented, or it would say depressed, or it would say abandoned.
Yeah.
And we pull it off and down they go on the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, if we would have said deliverance, they would have scattered like bugs, right? But
Exactly. Like language is a gate of trust. Like how you are speaking to
wait,
people.
whoa. Say it again.
Language is a gate of trust.
Yes, excellent.
And the Lord tells us to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. We always major on the innocent as doves, but like, what is being wise as a serpent, right? And a friend actually pointed that out to me, and it gave me permission to start learning how to speak to people outside the church to lead them back in.
Well, I don't know, like Daniel in the Old Testament, I don't know if that dude I don't think he could be an usher in the church.
Right.
No, I mean, seriously, I like he was called a magician.
Right.
He was the chief of the magicians.
Right.
You know, he took on the name of the king's god, Belshazzar.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and yet the Magi that came to see Jesus, they traced, I don't know if you know this, maybe you're learning something right here in culture.
Yeah.
They traced their roots back. You know, they're stargazers, right?
Right.
They see the star in the sky, they follow it, they find the Christ, right? You know the story. The reason why they were looking for a star is because they traced their roots back to Daniel's Magi. Because
Incredible.
Daniel was leading the Magi to Jehovah.
Wow.
And under the guise of being a psychic.
Yeah. Wow.
Crazy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And what I love about him too, though, is like he was like, fine, call me whatever you want, but he still was like the God of Israel, right? He wasn't covert, but he was also hidden in Babylon. Like he didn't care what people were calling them. Like his story just like continues to unravel. It actually, even how I operate as a prophet, I do stuff that I tell people, I'm like, I go in a classic style. Like I go in somewhere and I'm like, I'm going to tell you what I see. Right.
Yeah.
But then there's this other role that I play, which I call like administrator. I want to say this. I hear a lot of prophets and prophetic people. They're always like, I'm bad at admin. And I'm like, okay. And I kind of feel like we need to chill out on that for a second.
Totally.
Because the 15th century definition of administrator is like one who has authority to manage or dispense. And there is a building aspect, like, and management aspect of being a prophet. Like Daniel was like managing the magicians, right? He was in charge of all of them. There's like, and I know that also, like, I can't really use Joseph because he's not considered a prophet, but like
I think Joseph was a prophet.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because I know there's some like off people are like, maybe not. You do think he's a prophet?
Oh, yeah.
All right, mystery solved. So then, fine. Joseph then also, they were put in charge of things, right?
Totally.
Like, and so a lot of times I'm just tired of like lazy prophets where I'm like, admin is not just managing your calendar. Like it's called to build something. And we see that biblically.
Joseph, as you just mentioned, he interprets the dream for the king.
Yeah.
But after that I can think of, I don't think he ever I don't think it's ever mentioned that he interprets another dream. Now I'm sure he was.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but what he was doing was translating that dream into an administrative mission, right?
Yeah.
Creating structure and strategy around it so they wouldn't die in the prophesied famine.
Exactly. He gave them actionable intel that they could partner with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, what he was actually famous for, beyond, like, the king knew about the dream, but everybody else knew that Joseph is keeping us safe by the strategy he has with the 7 prosperous years and 7 lean years.
Yeah.
And he saves Egypt and he saves, all the surrounding nations by his administrative gift, in that he is a solutionary.
Yeah.
He's not just a prophet.
Exactly. So I'm just kind of tired of prophets who are like, oh, I'm just going to heaven, or I'm just like praying for people in the prayer line, but they're not actually like stepping. I'm like, this thing about like, I'm not good at admin, I think it's got to stop. That's my passion pitch. So that is a role that I play at Aqua Regia because I work with prophets and prophetic people, and I have to administrate like prophetic reports and people coming together and prophesying and working with clients. Like none of that works unless you start building structures and systems.
You've systematized just what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you take all prophetic words from a group of people who don't have basically any info about the person.
Correct.
They prophesy.
Yeah.
You put it in a systematic order that seems to make sense in the spirit.
Yeah.
And then you give them some ideas, kind of like a Joseph.
Right.
Hey, here's how you might pursue the activation of these prophetic words.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And that's part of the report.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what are the, do you have any stories about that at all?
Oh my gosh, yes. So many. I will tell this one story. When we started moving into consulting, because solutions were we were doing reports for people as like encouragement, beautiful gifts,
Like
right?
everyday people.
Yeah, just anyone who really wanted one, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And then solutions kind of started accidentally popping out of them. So we were like, well, what if we did consulting, And then we looked in scripture and we're like, wait, Daniel, Joseph, Elisha, Samuel, everyone was consulting, right? So we're like, all right, let's try to go after actual questions. And so we had this one guy, he was a part of an anti-trafficking organization.
Got it. We're trying to keep this under the covers a little bit.
So I've been given permission to share this, but I cover some details.
Yeah.
And basically, their organization was looking to grow. They were kind of hitting some roadblocks. So we did a report for them. And essentially, the report said, hey, there's a partnership. And when you enter into this partnership with this specific partner, it's going to be really clunky, but don't give up. Okay. 2 days later, after they get a phone call to join this organization. Guys actually partnered. Who it was going to be in? Yeah. Well, I think we described it. I can't remember the exact details. So they partner up with this organization. Not good. Okay. Like
really clunky.
Really clunky. But he was like, okay, I have these words. Like that's gonna be this way. Let's persevere. So they did. And then what ended up happening was this acceleration occurred where they were able to start, I don't know what to call it, search and rescue, where they were able to start rescuing people at a new rate, but also it gave them this holistic experience where before people were rescuing people, but there was this piece missing to help them integrate back into society, if you will. Culture, so this partnership, their first person they were able to save, they were able to provide a flight back to his home country so that he could pay for it. All this like costs money, right? Yeah. Send him back to his country to be back with his family. And then there was like people on the ground that would later help them find jobs to like re-immerse back in, right? Because they've been slaves for so long. Yeah. This program started working so well that then this guy got, let's say, promoted to start working with other organizations who are some of the best in the area of like finding people. We'll just say that. Yeah. Which was incredible, right? So that was really exciting. Like and the way that all came about too was still blind information. And so when I say blind, these people can see, but we didn't tell them what they were prophesying into.
Okay, let's back up for just a second.
Yeah.
Because you know this world really well, and our audience doesn't.
Okay, yeah.
So the way that these reports work in our world is that we get a group of prophetic people, some of them prophets.
Yes.
We put them in teams of usually 2 or 3, right?
No, there's usually a group of like 10 of them.
10.
Yeah.
But all they know is it's a man or a woman who they're prophesying over. So they're basically prophesying over a number. Like we assign a number to a person or a group or whatever we're prophesying over. Yeah. We go, hey, you're prophesying over number 77. It's a man. That's all they know. Yeah.
For consulting, we give them blind questions.
Okay.
So we'll be like, here's a great example. This same organization, this I think will also help for people that are in different areas of the prophetic. They felt like that there was a problem within their organization because they were trying to do missions and there was they kept being thwarted, I guess is the only way I could describe it, right? So we did this report, and all we did was we asked our reporters, what does God think?
The reporters are the prophetic people.
Are the prophetic people.
Prophetic team.
Yeah. So we say, what does God think of male 2020? It's like just a person on the team. That's it. Yeah. So here's another role I play as a prophet. So I'm classic prophet administrator, and then I'm also an analyst or an interpreter, if you will.
Interpreter.
So my team, most of the time they're prophesying, they're encouraging, exhortation, edification, right? this intel comes back, we're reading it, and all of it is saying, male 2020 says all these great things about like who he is as a person, but many people were basically saying he is not to be trusted. Pretty intense, right? Never seen this from my team before.
So male 2020 is like, that's in the place of his name. So instead of saying Joe Johnson, it's male 2020.
Yeah.
And what do people think of male 2020 is the question you asked?
Yeah. What does God think of male 2020?
What does God think?
Yeah. But then it was like a lot of different language and the interpretation. We're looking at it and I was like, hey, because he sent members of his team and I was like, hey, male 2020, because I'm not going to say the name.
Yeah.
I think you need to take a look at him. I think that there might be a problem. This is not fun to say. And also I'm like, is this okay? Because prophecy, I was like, Holy Spirit, prophecy is exhortation, edification. And he was like, yeah, this isn't prophecy. This is protection, which which prophets also do in the Bible, right? So I was like, okay, so then we sent it, right? And then they did some work on their end. It came back, confirmed that there was corruption happening within that organization, within that person. Wow, right?
Was so the person the guy 2020 guy?
Yeah.
Was he the corrupt guy?
Correct.
I see why it was little.
Yeah. So you see what? So, so in the area, so that's how I act sometimes as a prophet. Like I didn't prophesy in that, but I came in like as an interpreter, looking at it, and that's kind of what I do. Is when all these people prophesy, I kind of scan it for patterns, and I also notice like pieces that might not look like they obviously come together, but the Holy Spirit will breathe on it and show me how they do. And it's not a perfect science. Listen, I also want to say if someone's like, we're not batting 100.
Yeah.
We always set expectations like this is an experiment. But I will tell you this, we've had a lot of really good fruit in the area of consulting, and it's getting me really excited about what's possible with the body of Christ. Like now we're not just helping people step into who they really are, but now we're also like protecting. Yeah.
Protecting them, guiding them, helping them come into their destiny and purpose.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. That opens my mind up to so many different things.
Yeah.
You're going to be teaching in the School of the Prophets.
Yes.
Are you going to be sharing any of this stuff?
Can I share any of this stuff?
Yeah, you can.
Well, I haven't gotten my speaking assignments yet.
Got it.
But I do know that I will be talking a little bit about culture and how to bring the prophetic into different cultures and protocols.
And realms,
and how to you understand language as a gate of trust and how to speak to people so that you don't trigger or turn them off so they can hear what you're actually saying. Yeah.
I think Christianese, as you're talking about language, is language is the
gate of trust.
Gate of trust.
Yeah. I like to say I'm a follower of Jesus, right? Like that's what I say.
You like to say that
more than Christian. The word Christian in America has like these connotations to them. But when I say a follower of Jesus, for some reason it changes.
Yeah. Are you a Christian? Well, I am a follower of Jesus. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just depends on who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Right.
That you ever say you're a psychic?
Never. Not one time. 0%.
You're making me.
In fact, one time I was like, ew.
People write me sometimes and they're like, you guys use tarot cards? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Nobody uses tarot cards.
Tarot cards, any of that kind of weird stuff.
But I have sat down with someone who's used tarot cards and preached the gospel to them. And I preached the gospel to them by asking them questions about who they are and how they got there and then prophesying over them.
Wow.
Leading them into an encounter with God.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So one of the things I want people to actually experience is the love of the Father for these people and remember, we don't battle against flesh and blood.
Yeah.
It's to actually see them as a son or daughter of God, rather than the role they're playing, which is psychic or tarot reader.
It's so powerful. We have a big part of the church doesn't even embrace prophetic ministry. And it's really sad because we end up with these weapons of warfare that aren't carnal, that are sitting there in the gun case, so to speak.
Right.
And people are like, no, that's not for today. But the enemy doesn't keep those rules, right? He doesn't keep those rules.
Right.
And yet Paul told Timothy, take the prophecies that were previously spoken over you and with them fight the good fight.
Yeah.
And here we are. We're running out there barehanded. The enemy's got weapons of warfare. We have greater weapons of warfare, but we're convinced we're not supposed to use them.
Exactly. Yes.
So, hey, we just want to say to you, come to School of Prophets. You're going to love it. It's August 7th through 11th. I have to always look at the date, and we've been doing it for years. 7th through 11th. Lindsey's going to be one of our instructors. She's amazing. Daniel McCallum will be with us. Who else?
Bethany
Haley
Hicks, Haley Braun, Ben Armstrong.
Ben Armstrong.
Yeah.
Man, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk so much about this whole thing of solutionaries. How do we influence culture? How do we actually get in the trenches? How do we turn the water into wine, so to speak? How do we turn the cesspool into a beautiful pool that you can, actually be a part of? So join us. Thank you so much for being on. That was amazing and beautiful. By the way, she's single, so if you'd like to date, you can just go in and on the comment line. And if you'd like some more information on School of Prophets, it should be right in the comment line. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.